Forgiveness is Freedom. Episode 4. Honoring Before Releasing. The Sacred Art of Letting Go. The Divine Frequency. Written by Dr. James Ojjeh. Welcome back to the Divine Frequency, and to the fourth episode of our series, Forgiveness is Freedom. We have traveled far together in this series. In Episode 1, we named the invisible weight of unforgiveness. In Episode 2, we went inside the body and discovered that resentment is a biological event that hijacks your nervous system and can become a chemical addiction. In Episode 3, we faced the hardest forgiveness of all, the one we direct toward ourselves, and we began the practice of laying down the gavel. Today, we arrive at something different. Something quieter, something sacred. Today, we learn the art of honoring the past before we let it go. Because here is the truth that most teachings on letting go miss entirely. You cannot release what you have not first honored. When you try to force something out of your life without acknowledging the role it played, the subconscious resists. It feels that something is being stolen, not released, and so it holds tighter. But when you pause, when you stand at the threshold between what has been and what is becoming, when you offer a sincere and honest acknowledgement, "Thank you for what you taught me," even when the lesson came wrapped in pain, something inside you softens, the grip loosens, and the release becomes not an act of loss, but an act of liberation. This episode is about that softening, that dignity, that sacred pause before you open your hands and let go. There are things you are still carrying that were never yours to hold. Old stories, old wounds, old versions of yourself that you have outgrown but have not yet set down. They live in the tightness of your shoulders, in the heaviness behind your eyes, in the quiet ache that arrives when the world goes still, and you are left alone with everything you have been trying not to feel, but you cannot walk forward while carrying the weight of what has already passed, and you cannot receive what is coming with hands that are still clenching what is gone. Letting go is not losing, it is making room. Why we hold on. Before we learn how to release, we must first understand why we hold on. Because holding on is not a sign of weakness. It is a deeply human response, and it serves a purpose that most people never examine. We hold on because the known, even when it hurts, feels safer than the unknown. The nervous system, as we have explored throughout this series, is designed to prioritize survival, not happiness. It gravitates toward the familiar, not because the familiar is good, but because it is predictable. And predictability, to a brain that is constantly scanning for threats, feels like safety. This is why a person can recognize, intellectually, that a relationship is over, that a chapter has closed, that a belief is no longer true, and still find themselves unable to release it. The conscious mind knows it is time, but the subconscious, which carries the emotional weight and controls the majority of behavior, has not yet received the signal that it is safe to let go. We also hold on because of identity. The stories we have told ourselves about who we are, what happened to us, and what it means, become part of our self-concept. The person who was betrayed carries the identity of the betrayed. The person who failed carries the identity of the failure. The person who was abandoned carries the identity of the one who was not chosen. And as painful as these identities are, they are familiar. They are known. And releasing them can feel, paradoxically, like losing a part of yourself. But what if the part you are afraid of losing is not truly you? What if it is a costume you put on in a moment of survival and have been wearing so long you forgot it was not your skin. And there is one more reason we hold on, one that is perhaps the most important of all: unprocessed emotion. Many people hold on to the past not because they want to, but because the emotions associated with it were never fully felt, expressed, or integrated. The grief that was swallowed instead of spoken, the anger that was suppressed instead of honored, the fear that was buried instead of faced. These emotions do not disappear simply because they are ignored. They become lodged in the body, stored in the nervous system, and they continue to influence behavior and perception until they are finally acknowledged. This is why letting go is not a mental exercise alone. You cannot think your way out of an emotion that lives in your body. You cannot rationalize away pain that was never given permission to exist. Letting go, when it is real and lasting, is an act that involves the whole self: the mind, the heart, the body, and the spirit working in unison. And the first step is not to force anything to leave. The first step is to understand why it is still here. And in that understanding, compassion is born. And in that compassion, the grip begins to loosen. The overlooked step. Here is where most people make a mistake in the process of letting go. They try to release without honoring. They want the weight gone, and so they push. They force. They tell themselves to move on. They shame themselves for still caring, still hurting, still being affected by something that happened long ago. But the subconscious does not respond to force. It responds to safety. And honoring what you are releasing is the act that creates that safety. Before anything can be truly released, it must first be honored. This is one of the most overlooked steps in the process of letting go, and it is also the most essential. When you try to release something without first acknowledging the role it played in your life, the release is incomplete. The subconscious feels that something is being taken away, and it resists. But when you pause to honor what you are releasing, to thank it for the function it served, even when that function was born of pain, the process becomes an act of dignity rather than destruction. Every experience you have lived, every person you have encountered, every joy and every sorrow has been part of your becoming. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was in vain. The relationships that ended taught you about your own worth. The failures that stung taught you about resilience and redirection. The delays and detours that frustrated you taught you about patience, faith, and the intelligence of timing. This does not mean that everything that happened was fair or right or deserved. It means that within even the most painful chapters, seeds of growth were planted, and those seeds have become part of the strength you carry today. Honoring the past is not the same as clinging to it. It is not about romanticizing what was or replaying old wounds until they become comfortable. It is about standing at the threshold between what has been and what is becoming, and offering a quiet, sincere acknowledgement. Thank you for the role you played in my life. Thank you for the lessons you brought, even the ones that came wrapped in pain. I honor what we shared, and now I bless it and set it free so that I may step fully into who I am becoming. There is a great dignity in this practice. It transforms the act of letting go from an experience of loss into an experience of liberation, and it gives the subconscious mind the signal it needs. This is not an attack. This is not an erasure. This is a graduation. And what comes next is worthy of the space that is being made. Gratitude as alchemy. Gratitude is the bridge between what was and what is becoming. When you offer genuine gratitude, not forced, not performed, but truly felt, something shifts inside you at a biological level. Research has demonstrated that the sustained experience of gratitude produces coherent patterns in the heart's rhythm, activates the parasympathetic nervous system, reduces cortisol, and increases beneficial hormones associated with vitality and resilience. Your immune function improves. Your cognitive clarity sharpens. Your electromagnetic field becomes more organized and powerful. Gratitude is not just a nice idea. It is a physiological event that literally changes the chemistry of your body. And when you direct that gratitude toward the very experiences you are releasing, something remarkable happens. The emotional charge of the memory begins to dissolve, not because you are pretending it did not hurt, but because you are choosing to see it through a wider lens, a lens that includes the pain, yes, but also the growth, the lesson, the strength that was forged in the fire. This is alchemy, the transmutation of suffering into wisdom, of heaviness into lightness, of resentment into peace. You do not need to wait for something grand to feel grateful. You can be grateful for the simple fact that you survived, that you are here, that you are awake enough to be listening to these words, that your heart is still open despite everything it has endured. That is not a small thing. That is extraordinary. Gratitude is the alchemy that transforms the pain of the past into the gold of wisdom. It is the gentle bridge that carries you from heaviness into freedom, from survival into thriving, from resentment into peace. Honor every step you have walked. Bless every lesson you have learned. And know that all of it, every single moment, has prepared you for the beauty that is still to come. Rewriting the story, there is one more dimension to this process that deserves attention. Because honoring the past is not only about the people and experiences you are releasing, it is also about the story you have been telling yourself about what those experiences mean. You have spent your entire life telling yourself a story about who you are, what you deserve, what is possible, and what the events of your life mean. This narrative has been running in the background of your awareness, shaping your perception, guiding your choices, and influencing the reality you experience every day. Much of this story was written before you had the awareness to question it. It was written by the experiences of childhood, by the voices of caregivers, by the conclusions your young mind drew in moments of pain, confusion, or longing. And over the years, it was reinforced through repetition until it no longer felt like a story at all. It felt like the truth. But a story, no matter how deeply embedded, is not a fact. It is an interpretation. It is one version of events, filtered through the beliefs and emotions that were present at the time it was written. And like any story, it can be revised. Rewriting your story does not mean denying what happened. It means choosing a new interpretation that serves your growth, rather than imprisoning you in your past. You are not your past. You are the awareness that observes the past. And that awareness has the power, in every present moment, to choose a different meaning. A meaning that is worthy of the person you are becoming. A meaning that serves your future rather than anchoring you to what has already been. The pen is already in your hand. The page is open. And the next chapter begins with the very next thought you choose to believe about yourself. The practice. So I invite you now, wherever you are, to try this. Close your eyes if you can. Take a slow, deep breath, and bring to mind one thing you are ready to release. It could be a relationship, a regret, a version of yourself you have outgrown, a belief that once protected you but now restricts you, a dream that did not unfold the way you imagined, a chapter that closed before you felt ready. Do not rush past whatever arises. Let it be here. Let yourself feel it, fully, without judgment, the sadness, the anger, the longing. Whatever is present, it is welcome. It has been waiting for this moment. Now, from the deepest place of honesty within you, speak to it, silently or aloud. In whatever words feel true, you might say, "Thank you for the role you played in my life. Thank you for the lessons you brought, even the ones that came wrapped in pain. I honor what we shared. I honor who I was when I walked through that chapter. And now, with love and with compassion, I bless it, and I set it free, so that I may step fully into who I am becoming." Breathe. Let whatever wants to move through you, move. And when you are ready, open your eyes and notice the space, the lightness, the quiet opening where the weight used to be. That space is not empty. It is sacred. It is the ground from which your next chapter will grow. Do not rush to fill it. Honor it. Rest in it. Trust that what is meant for you will find its way into the opening you have made. Not everything that leaves your life is a loss. Some things depart, so that better things can arrive. Some doors close, so that truer doors can open. Some chapters end, so that the story can finally become what it was always meant to be. But nothing can leave with grace until it is first met with gratitude, until you stand before it and say, with your whole heart, "Thank you for the beauty, for the pain, for the way you shaped me into someone who is ready for what comes next. I do not leave you in anger. I leave you in honor, and I carry with me not the wound, but the wisdom, not the weight, but the wings." If this episode stirred something in you, if you felt a shift, a softening, a moment of peace you had forgotten was possible, please share it with someone who needs to hear these words. And subscribe to Stay Connected as we continue this journey together. In our next episode, we go deeper into the energetic dimension of release. We will explore the concept of energetic cords, those invisible attachments that continue to drain your vitality long after a relationship or experience has ended in the physical world. You will learn how to recognize them, how they keep you tethered to what no longer serves you, and how to consciously, lovingly cut them free. This is the episode where the release becomes tangible, where you reclaim your energy, where you take back what has been quietly given away. Until then, honor what has been, bless what is leaving, and trust the sacred space that opens when you finally let go. Stay rooted in your truth, stay in your light, and stay with us as we continue to awaken, to heal, and to live fully in the divine frequency.